What if everything you thought you knew about the legendary kingdom of El Dorado was just the tip of the iceberg? Beneath the shimmering surface of gold and myth lies a story far more intricate, a tale of political scheming, hidden alliances, and secrets that vanished into the shadows of history. El Dorado wasn't just a city of gold, it was a kingdom built on ambition, power, and the kind of intrigue that could bring empires to their knees. But what really happened to it, and why do so many ancient civilizations seem to crumble under the weight of their own secrets? Today, we're diving deep into the untold stories of lost kingdoms like El Dorado, where rulers wielded power like a double-edged sword, and political machinations shaped the fate of entire civilizations. What secrets did they take to their graves, and how did these hidden narratives shape the world we live in today? Stick around, because this journey through ancient mysteries is about to uncover truths that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the past. Every great kingdom begins with a spark, an ambition that ignites the hearts of leaders and the loyalty of their people. The rise of ancient empires wasn't just about brute force or luck. It was a carefully orchestrated dance of strategy, alliances, and vision. Take the Khmer Empire, for example. Nestled in the lush jungles of Southeast Asia, this kingdom didn't just rise to power, it thrived. With its capital at anchor, the Khmer Empire became a beacon of culture and innovation, its towering temples and intricate water systems a testament to its ingenuity. But what made the Khmer Empire so formidable? Geography played a crucial role. Situated along fertile plains and vital trade routes, the Khmer had access to abundant resources and a steady flow of goods, ideas, and people. Leadership, too, was pivotal. Kings like Jayavarman II didn't just conquer, they united, forging alliances that turned scattered tribes into a cohesive, thriving civilization. Then there's the Kingdom of Aksum, a powerhouse in ancient East Africa. Located at the crossroads of trade between the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean, Aksum's rise was fueled by its control over lucrative trade routes. Ivory, gold, and incense flowed through its ports, making it one of the wealthiest kingdoms of its time. But wealth alone didn't sustain Axum. Its leaders, like King Azana, embraced innovation, adopting Christianity and minting their own coins, a rarity in the ancient world. These kingdoms didn't just grow, they became cultural and economic hubs, shaping the world around them. Yet, for all their grandeur, these empires didn't last forever. The very factors that propelled their rise, ambition, alliances, and strategic conquests, often sowed the seeds of their decline. Internal power struggles, external invasions, and the shifting tides of trade routes all played a role in their eventual collapse. The Khmer Empire, for instance, faced environmental challenges that strained its sophisticated water systems, while Axum's decline was tied to the rise of rival powers and shifting trade networks. What's fascinating is how these kingdoms, despite their eventual downfall, left an indelible mark on history. Their stories remind us that power is fleeting, but the legacies of innovation, culture, and human ambition endure. And as we peel back the layers of their rise and fall, we begin to see patterns of political intrigue, of alliances forged and broken, of secrets buried beneath the sands of time. These are the hidden narratives that shaped not just the past, but the world we live in today. So, what can we learn from the rise of these lost kingdoms? Perhaps it's that greatness is never just about strength, it's about vision, resilience, and the ability to adapt. And as we delve deeper into their stories, we'll uncover how their triumphs and failures continue to echo through the ages. But what happens when ambition turns inward, when the very heart of a kingdom begins to tear itself apart? power struggles, those fierce battles for control within royal families, rival factions, or neighboring states have often been the hidden catalysts behind the rise and fall of ancient civilizations. Take the Ptolemaic Dynasty in Egypt, for instance. This was a kingdom that began with promise, founded by Ptolemy I, a general under Alexander the Great. For a time, it flourished, blending Greek and Egyptian cultures into a vibrant, powerful empire. But beneath the grandeur of its temples and the wealth of its cities, a darker story unfolded, one of sibling rivalries, betrayals, and relentless infighting. Cleopatra VII, perhaps the most famous of the Ptolemies, is often remembered for her alliances with Rome, but her rise to power was marked by a brutal struggle against her own brothers and sisters. These weren't just personal disputes, they were battles for the throne that destabilized the entire kingdom. Each time a sibling was overthrown or exiled, the dynasty grew weaker, its resources drained by constant conflict. This internal chaos left Egypt vulnerable, not just to rival powers like Rome, but also to its own crumbling foundations, and Egypt wasn't alone in this. Across the ancient world, from the Maya city-states to the empires of Mesopotamia, power struggles often sowed the seeds of decline. Rival factions within a kingdom would fight for control, diverting attention and resources away from external threats. In some cases, these conflicts even led to civil wars, fracturing societies from within. The question is, why did these struggles happen so often? At their core, they weren't just about power for its own sake, they were about survival and legacy. For many rulers, holding onto the throne wasn't just a matter of pride, it was a matter of life and death, and for their kingdoms, the stakes were even higher. Consider this when a ruler's legitimacy was questioned, or when factions within a royal family fought for control, the entire kingdom suffered. Stability crumbled, economies faltered, and armies grew weaker. Neighboring states, always on the lookout for weakness, would seize the opportunity to invade or dominate. The Ptolemaic Dynasty's struggles with Rome are a prime example. As the Ptolemies turned their attention inward, Rome watched closely, waiting for the right moment to step in. Yet, these power struggles weren't just destructive, they also reveal something profound about human nature. They remind us that even in the most powerful kingdoms, ambition and fear could override the greater good. They show how fragile even the mightiest empires could be when internal divisions took hold. And they leave us with a lingering question. Could these kingdoms have survived if their leaders had chosen unity over conflict? As we explore these hidden narratives, we begin to see a pattern, a cycle of ambition, betrayal, and downfall that repeats itself across history. But within that cycle lies a deeper truth. The fate of a kingdom often hinged not just on its external enemies, but on the choices made within its own walls. And as we'll see, those choices continue to shape the stories we tell about the past and the lessons we carry into the future. The Trojan War, immortalized in legend and poetry, is often remembered for its epic battles and larger-than-life heroes. But beneath the surface of this ancient conflict lies a web of hidden alliances and betrayals that reveals the true complexity of ancient politics. At its core, the war wasn't just about a single act of love or vengeance. It was a chessboard of shifting loyalties, secret deals, and calculated moves. Take Helen of Troy, for instance. Her abduction by Paris, often cited as the war's spark, was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Behind the scenes, kingdoms formed alliances not out of loyalty, but out of necessity and ambition. The Greeks, united under Agamemnon, were less a cohesive force and more a fragile coalition of rival city-states. each with its own agenda. What's fascinating is how these alliances were often built on shaky foundations. Leaders like Agamemnon and Achilles were as much rivals as they were allies, their cooperation strained by personal grievances and competing interests. And it wasn't just the Greeks across the battlefield. The Trojans too relied on allies whose loyalty was far from certain. The story of the Trojan horse, a masterpiece of deception, underscores this perfectly. It wasn't just a clever trick, it was the culmination of years of hidden agendas and betrayals, a reminder that in ancient politics, trust was a luxury few could afford. Spies and double agents played a crucial role in this high-stakes game. Coded messages, secret meetings, and carefully planted misinformation were tools of the trade, shaping the outcomes of battles and even entire wars. The legendary figure of Ptolemies, often credited with exposing Achilles' disguise, is a prime example. His cunning and resourcefulness made him invaluable until his own allies turned against him, accusing him of treason. This constant dance of loyalty and betrayal wasn't unique to Troy. Across the ancient world, from the courts of Mesopotamia to the palaces of Egypt, spies and informants wielded immense power, their actions often tipping the scales of fate. What does this tell us about the nature of ancient diplomacy? It reveals a world where alliances were fragile, where leaders switched sides not out of principle, but for personal gain. The Trojan War wasn't just a clash of armies, it was a clash of ambitions, where even the most powerful rulers were at the mercy of hidden agendas. And yet, these very complexities make the story so compelling. They remind us that history is rarely black and white, that the rise and fall of kingdoms often hinged on decisions made in shadowy corridors and whispered conversations. As we unravel these hidden narratives, we begin to see patterns that echo through the ages. The alliances and betrayals of Troy weren't just ancient history, they were a reflection of human nature, of the timeless struggle for power and survival. And they leave us with a question: in a world where trust is so easily broken, how do we navigate the delicate balance of loyalty and ambition? The answer, perhaps, lies in understanding the past, and in recognizing that the stories of ancient kingdoms are as much about us as they are about them. The Maya civilization, with its towering pyramids, intricate calendars, and sprawling city-states, stands as one of the most remarkable achievements of the ancient world. Yet by the 9th century, this once thriving culture began to unravel, leaving behind a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. What caused the collapse of a society so advanced, so deeply rooted in its environment and traditions? The answers, as it turns out, are as complex as the civilization itself. One of the most compelling theories points to environmental factors. The Maya were masterful engineers, building vast networks of reservoirs and canals to support their cities in the dense jungles of Mesoamerica. But evidence suggests that prolonged droughts, possibly exacerbated by deforestation, placed immense strain on their resources. Crops failed, water supplies dwindled, and the delicate balance that sustained their urban centers began to crumble. This wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a crisis amplified by human actions, a reminder of how even the most sophisticated societies can be vulnerable to the forces of nature. Yet, environmental challenges alone don't tell the full story. Beneath the surface of the Maya's decline lies a web of political intrigue and social unrest. The Maya were not a single, unified empire but a collection of city-states, each ruled by its own king and often locked in fierce competition. These rivalries, once a source of cultural and economic vitality, may have turned toxic as resources became scarcer. Internal power struggles, succession disputes, and the collapse of alliances could have fractured the social fabric, weakening the civilization from within. Consider the possibility of revolts. As conditions worsened, the Maya people, farmers, artisans, and laborers may have grown disillusioned with their rulers. Archaeological evidence, such as the defacing of royal monuments, hints at uprisings against the elite. These weren't just acts of rebellion, they were signs of a society unraveling under the weight of inequality and unmet promises. The very hierarchy that once held the Maya together may have become its undoing. External pressures also played a role. While the Maya were largely isolated from other major civilizations, shifts in trade networks and the rise of rival powers could have disrupted their economy. Without the flow of goods and ideas that once connected their cities, the Maya may have found themselves increasingly isolated, their resilience further eroded by a changing world. What makes the Maya's collapse so fascinating is how it mirrors the fragility of even the most advanced societies. Their downfall wasn't the result of a single catastrophic event, but a combination of factors, environmental, political, and social, that converged in a perfect storm. It's a story that resonates deeply today, reminding us of the delicate balance that sustains any civilization. As we piece together the hidden narratives of the Maya's decline, we're forced to confront uncomfortable truths about power, ambition, and the consequences of our choices. Could the Maya have avoided their fate? Perhaps, but their story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the greatest kingdoms are not immune to the forces of change. And in understanding their collapse, we gain not just insight into the past, but wisdom for the future. Carved into the rose-red cliffs of southern Jordan, the ancient city of Petra stands as a testament to human ingenuity and ambition. Known as the Lost City, Petra was once the thriving capital of the Nabatean kingdom, a civilization that mastered the art of survival in one of the harshest environments on Earth. But Petra's story is more than just a tale of architectural brilliance. It's a saga of political cunning, strategic alliances, and the relentless pursuit of power. How did this desert city rise to prominence, and what forces ultimately led to its decline? At its height, Petra was a linchpin of ancient trade routes, a bustling hub where caravans carrying spices, silk, and incense converged. Its location was no accident. Nestled between the Arabian Peninsula, Egypt, and the Mediterranean, Petra controlled key passages through the desert, allowing the Nabateans to tax and protect the flow of goods. This strategic position made Petra incredibly wealthy, but it also made it a target. The Nabateans didn't just rely on their geographic advantage, they became masters of diplomacy, forging alliances with powerful neighbors while maintaining their independence. The Nabatean rulers were shrewd politicians, balancing military strength with careful negotiation. King Aretas IV, for instance, expanded Petra's influence by aligning with Rome, securing trade deals that brought immense wealth to the city. Yet, this alliance was a double-edged sword. While it provided protection and prosperity, it also placed Petra under the watchful eye of an empire that would eventually absorb it. The Nabateans walked a tightrope, using their wealth to build fortifications and their diplomacy to stave off invasions, but as Rome's power grew, so did its appetite for control. Petra's rulers also faced internal challenges. The city's wealth created a divide between the elite and the common people, a tension that simmered beneath the surface of its grand facades. The Nabateans invested heavily in infrastructure, building elaborate water systems to sustain their desert city, but these projects required immense labor and resources. Over time, the strain of maintaining such a complex society may have weakened Petra from within, leaving it vulnerable to external pressures. The decline of Petra wasn't sudden. It was a slow unraveling, shaped by shifting trade routes, environmental changes, and the rise of rival powers. As Rome's influence expanded, Petra's strategic importance diminished. New trade routes bypassed the city, and the wealth that once flowed through its gates began to dry up. By the time of the Islamic conquests in the 7th century, Petra had faded into obscurity, its grandeur buried beneath the sands of time. Yet, Petra's story is more than just a cautionary tale of rise and fall. It's a microcosm of ancient political dynamics, a reflection of how geography, ambition, and diplomacy intersect to shape the fate of civilizations. The Nabateans weren't just builders of a city, they were architects of a kingdom that thrived through adaptability and resilience. Their ability to navigate the complexities of ancient politics offers a fascinating glimpse into the forces that drive history. As we explore the hidden narratives of Petra, we're reminded that the past is never just about the monuments left behind. It's about the people who built them, the decisions they made, and the legacies they left. And in unraveling these stories, we gain not just a deeper understanding of history, but a clearer view of the patterns that continue to shape our world today. The Hittite Empire was a powerhouse of the ancient world, its influence stretching across Anatolia and beyond. Known for their formidable military, advanced legal systems, and groundbreaking diplomacy, the Hittites were masters of political strategy. Yet, despite their prowess, this empire vanished from history almost overnight, leaving behind a mystery that has baffled scholars for centuries. What could have brought down a civilization so skilled in the art of survival? The answers lie in a tangled web of internal strife, external threats, and the harsh realities of ancient politics. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Hittite Empire was its sophisticated diplomacy. Long before the concept of international treaties became commonplace, the Hittites were crafting agreements with neighboring powers, most notably the Egyptians. The Treaty of Kadesh, signed between the Hittite king Hattusili III and the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II, is one of the earliest known peace treaties in history. It wasn't just a document, it was a testament to the Hittites' ability to navigate the complex world of ancient alliances. Yet, even this level of diplomatic skill couldn't shield them from the challenges that would eventually lead to their collapse. Internal rebellions may have played a significant role in the Hittites' downfall. Like many ancient empires, the Hittite kingdom was not a monolithic entity, but a collection of vassal states and territories, each with its own loyalties and grievances. Over time, these regions grew restless, chafing under the central authority of the Hittite king. Rebellions erupted, draining the empire's resources and weakening its ability to respond to external threats. The Hittite rulers, once seen as unshakable, found themselves struggling to maintain control over their own people. External invasions also placed immense pressure on the empire. The rise of the Sea Peoples, a mysterious coalition of raiders, brought chaos to the eastern Mediterranean. These marauders targeted coastal cities and trade routes, disrupting the economic and political stability of the region. The Hittites, already strained by internal conflicts, were ill-prepared to face this new threat. Their once mighty armies, stretched thin by years of warfare, could not withstand the relentless onslaught. But perhaps the most compelling factor in the Hittite Empire's collapse was the shifting balance of power in the ancient world. As neighboring kingdoms like Assyria grew stronger, the Hittites found themselves increasingly isolated. Their once secure alliances began to crumble, and their ability to negotiate from a position of strength diminished. The Treaty of Kadesh, which had once symbolized their diplomatic mastery, now seemed like a relic of a bygone era. The fall of the Hittite Empire serves as a stark reminder that even the most skilled politicians and strategists are not immune to the tides of history. Their story is a testament to the fragility of power, the unpredictability of alliances, and the relentless pressures of a changing world. As we uncover the hidden narratives of their decline, we gain not just insight into the past, but a deeper understanding of the forces that shape civilization's forces that continue to influence our world today. Religion has always been a powerful force, capable of uniting people under a shared belief, or tearing them apart in the name of the divine. In the ancient world, rulers didn't just wield swords and crowns, they held sacred symbols, claiming to be chosen by the gods themselves. Take the pharaohs of Egypt, for example. These rulers didn't just govern, they were seen as living gods, intermediaries between the heavens and the earth. By claiming divine authority, they solidified their hold on power, ensuring that their rule was not just accepted but revered. Temples weren't just places of worship, they were political tools, reinforcing the pharaoh's divine right and binding the people's loyalty to both the state and its leader. But this intertwining of religion and politics wasn't unique to Egypt. Across the globe, rulers used faith as a means of control, weaving their authority into the fabric of their people's spiritual lives. In the Aztec Empire, religion wasn't just a part of governance, it was the foundation of it. The Aztec rulers claimed descent from the gods, and their rituals, including human sacrifices, were seen as essential to maintaining cosmic balance. This divine mandate gave them immense power, but it also made their empire vulnerable. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived, they exploited these religious beliefs, turning the Aztecs' own faith against them. By presenting themselves as agents of a new and vengeful god, the Spanish sowed doubt and division, destabilizing the empire from within. Religious conflicts could also arise from within a kingdom, pitting rival factions against each other in a struggle for spiritual and political dominance. In ancient Mesopotamia, for instance, city-states often clashed not just over territory, but over whose gods were supreme. These conflicts weren't merely theological, they were deeply political, with priests and rulers vying for control over the hearts and minds of the people. A shift in religious allegiance could topple kings, as seen in the rise of new dynasties that often came with a new pantheon of gods. Yet, religion wasn't always a source of division. In some cases, it served as a unifying force, bringing together disparate groups under a shared belief system. The Mauryan Empire in ancient India, under the rule of Ashoka the Great, embraced Buddhism as a means of fostering unity and moral governance. By promoting nonviolence and tolerance, Ashoka used religion not to dominate, but to inspire, a rare example of faith being wielded as a tool for peace rather than power. What these examples reveal is the dual nature of religion in ancient politics. It could be a source of strength, legitimizing rulers and uniting people under a common cause. But it could also be a source of conflict, deepening divides and destabilizing kingdoms. The line between the sacred and the political was often blurred, with rulers and priests working hand in hand, or sometimes at odds, to shape the destiny of their people. As we peel back the layers of these ancient societies, we see how deeply intertwined religion and politics truly were. The gods weren't just figures of worship, they were players in the game of power, their names invoked to justify conquests, quell rebellions, and secure thrones. And in understanding this, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities of ancient governance. where faith and ambition were often two sides of the same coin. The Silk Road is often romanticized as a vast highway of commerce, a place where caravans carried silk, spices, and stories across continents. But beneath the surface of this ancient trade network lies a far more complex story, one of political maneuvering, espionage, and the subtle art of influence. The Silk Road wasn't just a route for goods, it was a stage where kingdoms played out their ambitions, using trade as a cover for their deeper strategies. Take the Han Dynasty of China, for instance. When they opened the Silk Road in the 2nd century BCE, their goal wasn't just economic, it was political. By establishing trade links with the West, the Han Dynasty aimed to secure allies against their nomadic enemies, the Xiongnu. Diplomats and envoys traveled alongside merchants, carrying not just goods but messages of alliance and offers of protection. The Silk Road became a lifeline, not just for silk and spices, but for the exchange of ideas, technologies, and military support. But trade routes are rarely one-dimensional. While the Han Dynasty used the Silk Road to strengthen its position, others saw it as an opportunity to gather intelligence. Spies disguised as merchants moved freely along the route, collecting information on rival kingdoms and reporting back to their masters. These agents of intrigue played a crucial role in shaping the political landscape, turning the Silk Road into a shadowy battlefield of espionage. The Parthian Empire, for example, was notorious for intercepting caravans to glean secrets from the West, using their knowledge to outmaneuver both Rome and China. Merchants, too, were more than just traders, they were diplomats in their own right. Many acted as intermediaries, brokering deals that went beyond commerce. A merchant from Samarkand might carry a message from a Persian king to a Chinese emperor, or negotiate a ceasefire between warring tribes. Their role was pivotal, not just in moving goods, but in maintaining the fragile web of alliances that kept the Silk Road open. Yet, for all its potential for cooperation, the Silk Road was also a place of fierce competition. Rival kingdoms vied for control over key sections of the route, knowing that whoever held the trade hubs held the power. Cities like Kashgar and Merv became flashpoints of conflict, their markets and caravanserais doubling as fortresses. The struggle for dominance over the Silk Road wasn't just about wealth, it was about influence, about projecting power across vast distances. What makes the Silk Road so fascinating is how it reveals the interconnectedness of the ancient world. It wasn't just a physical network, it was a web of relationships where politics, economics, and culture intersected. The goods that traveled along its routes were symbols of power, the alliances formed along its paths were lifelines, and the secrets exchanged in its caravanserais could change the fate of empires. As we trace the hidden narratives of the Silk Road, we see a world where trade was never just trade. It was a tool, a weapon, and a bridge, and in understanding this, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity of history, for the ways in which the past continues to shape the present. The Silk Road reminds us that even the most seemingly straightforward paths are often anything but, and that the stories we tell about them are just as rich and layered as the routes themselves. The Roman Republic was once a shining example of governance, its Senate a symbol of balanced power and civic virtue, but by the 1st century BCE, cracks began to show in its foundation. What started as a system designed to prevent tyranny slowly unraveled, torn apart by ambition, betrayal, and the very people sworn to protect it. At the heart of this collapse were figures like Julius Caesar, whose rise to power exposed the Republic's vulnerabilities and set the stage for its transformation into an empire. But Caesar's story is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. a tale of political intrigue that reveals how even the most stable systems can crumble under pressure. The Senate, once a unifying force, became a battleground for rival factions. On one side were the Optimates, the traditionalist elite who sought to preserve the status quo. On the other were the Populares, politicians who championed the cause of the common people, often using populist rhetoric to gain support. This divide wasn't just ideological, it was deeply personal. Men like Pompey and Crassus, both powerful generals, formed alliances not out of loyalty, but out of convenience. These alliances were fragile, shifting with every political wind, and the Senate became a theater of constant maneuvering and manipulation. Julius Caesar, perhaps the most famous of the Populares, understood the power of the people better than anyone. His military victories in Gaul made him a hero to the masses, but they also made him a threat to the Senate. His growing popularity, combined with his willingness to bypass traditional channels of power, alarmed the Optimates. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon with his army in 49 BC, it wasn't just an act of defiance. It was a declaration that the old rules no longer applied. The Republic, built on the principle of shared power, now found itself at the mercy of a single man's ambition. But Caesar's rise was only possible because the Republic's foundations had already weakened. Corruption had seeped into its institutions, with senators more concerned with personal gain than the common good. The gap between the wealthy elite and the working class had widened, fueling resentment and unrest. Populist leaders like Caesar and his ally, Mark Antony, exploited this discontent, promising reform while consolidating their own power. Yet, even these leaders were not immune to betrayal. Caesar's assassination on the Ides of March, 44 BC, was a stark reminder that in the world of Roman politics, no alliance was ever truly secure. The fall of the Roman Republic offers a sobering lesson about the fragility of political systems. It wasn't just external enemies or economic crises that brought it down. It was the internal divisions, the erosion of trust, and the relentless pursuit of power by those who should have been its guardians. The Republic's collapse reminds us that even the most enduring institutions are vulnerable to the weaknesses of human nature. As we reflect on this pivotal moment in history, we're forced to confront a timeless question: how do we balance ambition with responsibility and power with justice? The story of the Roman Republic isn't just about ancient politics, it's a mirror held up to our own world, revealing the dangers of division and the importance of safeguarding the systems that protect us all. And in understanding its fall, we gain not just insight into the past, but a warning for the future. Deep in the heart of Africa, along the winding Nile River, the Kingdom of Kush rose as a beacon of power and sophistication. Often overshadowed by its northern neighbor, Egypt, Kush was far from a mere footnote in history. This was a civilization that not only rivaled Egypt's grandeur, but also carved out its own unique legacy, blending strength, strategy, and cultural brilliance. How did a kingdom so often underestimated rise to challenge one of the most dominant empires of the ancient world? The answer lies in a story of resilience, political cunning, and the relentless pursuit of independence. Kush's rise to prominence was no accident. Situated in what is now modern-day Sudan, the kingdom controlled vital trade routes that connected sub-Saharan Africa to the Mediterranean. Gold, ivory, and exotic goods flowed through its lands, making Kush a center of wealth and influence. But the Kushites weren't content to simply profit from trade. They sought to establish themselves as equals to Egypt, adopting and adapting elements of Egyptian culture while forging their own identity. The relationship between Kush and Egypt was complex. marked by both cooperation and conflict. At times, the two kingdoms were allies, with Kushite rulers even ascending to the throne of Egypt during the 25th dynasty. These Black Pharaohs, as they are sometimes called, brought a unique blend of Kushite and Egyptian traditions to the Nile Valley, ruling with a vision that transcended borders. Yet this alliance was fragile. Egypt, ever wary of Kush's growing power, often sought to dominate its southern neighbor, pushing the Kushites to defend their independence with both military might and diplomatic skill. One of the most fascinating aspects of Kushite politics was their ability to adapt. When faced with Egyptian aggression, Kushite leaders didn't just rely on brute force, they played the long game. They fortified their cities, strengthened their armies, and even shifted their capital to Maurya, a strategic location that allowed them to better control trade and resist invasion. This move wasn't just practical, it was symbolic, a declaration that Kush would not be subjugated. Yet, Kush's story is not just one of triumph. Like many ancient kingdoms, it faced challenges that tested its resilience. Environmental pressures, such as desertification and changing trade routes, began to strain its economy. Internal divisions and external threats, including the rise of new powers like Axum, further weakened the kingdom. By the 4th century CE, Kush had faded from the world stage, its once mighty cities reclaimed by the sands. What makes Kush's story so compelling is its enduring legacy. This was a kingdom that refused to be defined by its relationship with Egypt, forging its own path and leaving behind a rich cultural heritage. The pyramids of Maurya, the intricate jewelry, and the unique script known as Mauryitic are testaments to a civilization that was both independent and deeply connected to the wider world. As we uncover the hidden narratives of Kush, we're reminded that history is rarely as simple as it seems. Kush wasn't just a rival to Egypt, it was a symbol of African ingenuity and resilience, a kingdom that rose, adapted, and left an indelible mark on the world. Its story challenges us to look beyond the familiar narratives of ancient history and explore the rich, often overlooked tapestry of human achievement. And in doing so, we gain not just a deeper understanding of the past, but a greater appreciation for the diverse forces that have shaped our world. While the annals of ancient history are often dominated by the deeds of kings and generals, the role of women in shaping the political landscape is a story that deserves far more attention. From the courts of Egypt to the palaces of Mesopotamia, women wielded power in ways that were both subtle and profound, navigating a world designed to keep them in the shadows. Their influence, though often overlooked, was no less significant, and in some cases, it was the key to their kingdom's survival. Take Cleopatra VII, for instance. More than just a legendary figure of beauty and romance, Cleopatra was a master strategist. When she ascended the throne of Egypt, she faced a kingdom on the brink of collapse, squeezed between the expanding Roman Empire and the ambitions of her own siblings. Rather than relying solely on military might, Cleopatra turned to diplomacy, forming alliances with powerful Roman leaders like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. These weren't mere personal relationships, they were calculated moves to secure Egypt's independence in a world dominated by Rome. Cleopatra's ability to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman politics, all while maintaining her kingdom's autonomy, speaks volumes about her political acumen. But Cleopatra wasn't alone in her efforts to shape the fate of her people. In the ancient Hittite Empire, Queen Ptolemy played a pivotal role in diplomacy and governance. Married to King Hattusili III, Ptolemy wasn't just a consort, she was a co-ruler, actively involved in state affairs. Her correspondence with foreign leaders, including the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II, reveals a woman deeply engaged in the art of negotiation. Pujuhepa's letters, preserved on clay tablets, show her skill in balancing authority with tact, ensuring her voice was heard in a world where women were often sidelined. The strategies these women employed were as varied as the kingdoms they ruled. Some, like Cleopatra, used their intellect and charm to forge alliances. Others, like Queen Tomyris of the Massagetae, led armies into battle, proving that women could command respect not just in the halls of diplomacy, but on the battlefield as well. Tomyris famously defeated the Persian king, Cyrus the Great, avenging her son's death and securing her people's freedom. Her story is a reminder that women in the ancient world weren't just passive figures, they were leaders, warriors, and decision-makers. Yet, the political power of women wasn't always overt. In many cases, it was exercised behind the scenes through networks of family, religion, and tradition. In ancient China, Empress Lu of the Han Dynasty ruled as regent after her husband's death, using her position to consolidate power and eliminate rivals. Though her methods were ruthless, they ensured stability during a turbulent period. Similarly, in the Byzantine Empire, Empress Theodora used her influence to advocate for women's rights, pushing for laws that protected their property and autonomy. What these stories reveal is a hidden tapestry of female leadership, woven into the fabric of ancient history. Women didn't just navigate the male-dominated world of politics, they thrived in it, using every tool at their disposal to protect their kingdoms, their families, and their legacies. Their contributions, though often downplayed or erased, were vital to the rise and survival of countless civilizations. As we uncover these hidden narratives, we're reminded that history is richer and more complex than the tales we've been told. Women like Cleopatra, Pujuhepa, and Tomyris weren't exceptions. They were part of a broader tradition of female leadership that shaped the ancient world in ways we're only beginning to understand. Their stories challenge us to rethink the past, to see beyond the familiar figures and explore the diverse voices that have shaped our world. And in doing so, we gain not just a deeper appreciation for their achievements, but a clearer understanding of the forces that continue to shape history today. The Indus Valley civilization, flourishing over 4,000 years ago, stands as one of history's most remarkable achievements. With its meticulously planned cities, advanced drainage systems, and sprawling trade networks, it was a beacon of early urban life. Yet by around 1900 BC, this thriving society vanished, leaving behind only ruins and riddles. What could have caused the collapse of a civilization so advanced, so seemingly stable? The answer, much like the Indus Valley itself, remains shrouded in mystery, a puzzle that continues to captivate historians and archaeologists alike. One of the most compelling theories points to environmental changes. The Indus Valley, nestled along the fertile plains of the Indus River, relied heavily on its waterways for agriculture and trade, but evidence suggests that shifting river courses, possibly due to tectonic activity or climate change, disrupted this delicate balance. Floods may have destroyed crops, while droughts could have starved the population. The once thriving cities, built with precision and care, may have become uninhabitable, forcing people to abandon their homes in search of more stable environments. Yet, environmental factors alone don't fully explain the civilization's decline. Political instability could have played a significant role. Unlike other ancient societies, the Indus Valley shows little evidence of centralized rulers or monumental palaces. Instead, its cities suggest a more egalitarian structure, with shared resources and communal decision-making. While this system may have worked during times of prosperity, it might have struggled to adapt to crises. Without a strong, centralized authority to coordinate responses to environmental or social challenges, the civilization could have fragmented, its unity crumbling under pressure. External invasions are another possibility. Some scholars point to the arrival of the Indo-Aryans, a nomadic group from Central Asia, as a potential catalyst for the Indus Valley's collapse. Artifacts and skeletal remains suggest that conflict may have erupted, disrupting trade and destabilizing the region. However, this theory remains hotly debated, as there's no clear evidence of widespread violence or destruction. The Indus Valley's decline could have been a gradual process, shaped by a combination of internal and external pressures rather than a single, catastrophic event. Adding to the mystery is the lack of written records. Unlike the Egyptians or Mesopotamians, the Indus Valley people left behind no decipherable texts. Their script, found on seals and pottery, remains undeciphered, leaving historians to piece together their story through archaeology and speculation. This absence of written evidence not only deepens the enigma, but also opens the door to countless hidden narratives. Were there political intrigues, power struggles, or cultural shifts that we'll never fully understand? The silence of the Indus Valley is as intriguing as its ruins. What makes the Indus Valley story so compelling is how it reflects the fragility of even the most advanced societies. Its collapse reminds us that no civilization, no matter how sophisticated, is immune to the forces of change. Environmental shifts, political instability, and external threats can converge in ways that even the most resilient societies struggle to withstand. And in the absence of clear answers, we're left to wonder what lessons can we learn from a civilization that rose so high, only to vanish without a trace. As we explore the hidden narratives of the Indus Valley, we're reminded that some secrets of ancient politics may never be fully uncovered. The past, like the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, holds fragments of a story we can only begin to piece together. And in that uncertainty lies a profound truth. History is as much about the questions we ask as the answers we find. The Byzantine Empire, often seen as the last bastion of Rome's glory, stood for over 1,000 years as a beacon of culture, religion, and power. Yet, by the 15th century, this once mighty empire had crumbled, its capital Constantinople falling to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. What caused the collapse of a civilization that had weathered centuries of invasions, plagues, and upheavals? The answer lies not just in the swords of its enemies, but in the hidden fractures within its own walls, political intrigue, corruption, and a web of alliances that ultimately unraveled the empire from within. At its height, the Byzantine Empire was a marvel of governance and resilience. Emperors like Justinian the Great expanded its borders, codified its laws, and left behind architectural wonders like the Hagia Sophia. But even Justinian's reign, often celebrated as a golden age, was marred by political turmoil. His ambitious projects, while impressive, strained the empire's resources and sowed discontent among its people. The Nika riots, a violent uprising in Constantinople, nearly toppled his rule, exposing the fragility of even the most powerful leaders. Justinian's ability to crush the rebellion and rebuild the city was a testament to his determination, but it also highlighted the precarious balance of power that would haunt the empire for centuries. As the years passed, internal corruption began to erode the Byzantine Empire's foundations. The imperial court became a hotbed of intrigue, with rival factions vying for influence and wealth. Bribes, backroom deals, and betrayals became commonplace, undermining the trust and stability that had once held the empire together. The nobility, more concerned with personal gain than the common good, often ignored the needs of the people, leading to widespread discontent. This internal decay weakened the empire's ability to respond to external threats, leaving it vulnerable to invaders. External pressures only compounded the problem. The rise of the Seljuk Turks in the 11th century marked the beginning of a long decline. The Byzantine military, once a formidable force, struggled to defend its borders against this new and determined enemy. Key battles, like the disastrous defeat at Manzikert in 1071, exposed the empire's vulnerabilities. Without strong leadership and a united front, the Byzantines found themselves on the defensive, losing territory and influence with each passing decade. But the final blow came from within. In the empire's twilight years, hidden alliances and betrayals sealed its fate. The Fourth Crusade, launched with the promise of aiding the Byzantines, instead turned against them. In 1204, Crusader armies sacked Constantinople, looting its treasures and leaving the city in ruins. This betrayal by fellow Christians was a devastating blow, one from which the empire never fully recovered. Though the Byzantines eventually regained control of their capital, their power was greatly diminished, and the stage was set for the Ottoman conquest. The fall of the Byzantine Empire is a stark reminder that even the most enduring civilizations are not immune to collapse. Its story is one of ambition and decline, of alliances forged and broken, and of the delicate balance between internal stability and external threats. The decisions of its leaders, both wise and flawed, shaped its destiny, and ultimately its downfall. As we reflect on this pivotal moment in history, we're forced to confront a timeless truth: no empire, no matter how mighty, is invincible. The Byzantine Empire's legacy endures not just in its ruins, but in the lessons it offers about the dangers of corruption, the importance of unity, and the unpredictable nature of power. And in understanding its fall, we gain not just insight into the past, but a cautionary tale for the future. High in the rugged highlands of what is now Ethiopia, the Kingdom of Aksum once stood as a towering empire, its influence stretching across the Red Sea and beyond. Known for its towering obelisks, bustling ports, and mastery of trade, Axum was a powerhouse of the ancient world. But its story is more than just a tale of wealth and grandeur. It's a saga of diplomacy, conflict, and the delicate balance of power that defined the rise and fall of one of Africa's most remarkable civilizations. Axum's rise to prominence was no accident. Situated at the crossroads of major trade routes linking the Mediterranean, Africa, and the Indian Ocean, the kingdom became a hub for goods like ivory, gold, and spices. Its strategic location allowed Aksumite rulers to amass immense wealth, but they didn't rely solely on geography. Diplomacy played a crucial role in their success. Kings like Azana, one of Aksum's most famous rulers, forged alliances with neighboring states and even distant powers like Rome, ensuring their dominance in the region. These alliances weren't just about trade, they were about projecting power and securing Aksum's place as a major player in the ancient world. Yet, alliances alone couldn't sustain Aksum's empire. Military strength was equally vital. The Aksumite army, equipped with advanced weapons and tactics, was a force to be reckoned with. They expanded their territory, conquering rival kingdoms and securing key trade routes. One of their most notable victories came against the Kingdom of Kush, a once powerful neighbor to the north. By defeating Kush, Axum not only eliminated a rival, but also solidified its control over the lucrative trade networks that connected Africa to the wider world. But Axum's story isn't just one of triumph. Like all great empires, it faced challenges that tested its resilience. One of the most significant was the rise of Islam in the 7th century. As Muslim armies swept across the Arabian Peninsula, Axum's control over trade routes began to weaken. The kingdom, which had once been a key ally of the early Muslim community, found itself increasingly isolated. The shift in political and religious landscapes disrupted Axum's economy, and its once thriving ports began to decline. Religion also played a complex role in Axum's history. Under King Azana, the kingdom embraced Christianity, becoming one of the first Christian states in the world. This religious transformation not only shaped Axum's identity, but also its relationships with neighboring powers. While it strengthened ties with the Byzantine Empire, it also created tensions with other states that adhered to different faiths. Over time, these religious divisions may have contributed to Axum's decline, as the kingdom struggled to maintain its influence in a rapidly changing world. What makes Axum's story so compelling is how it reflects the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. Its rise and fall weren't just the result of internal decisions or external pressures. They were shaped by a web of relationships that spanned continents. Axum's alliances, conflicts, and cultural exchanges remind us that no kingdom exists in isolation. Each decision, each alliance, and each conflict rippled across the ancient world, shaping the course of history in ways we're still uncovering today. As we explore the hidden narratives of Axum, we're reminded that the past is a tapestry woven from countless threads. The kingdom's legacy endures not just in its ruins, but in the lessons it offers about the power of diplomacy, the fragility of empires, and the enduring connections that bind us all. And in understanding its story, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complex forces that have shaped our world, forces that continue to influence it today. In the shadowy corridors of ancient power, where whispers could topple thrones and secrets could decide the fate of empires, espionage was not just a tool, it was an art form. Long before the age of satellites and cyber surveillance, rulers relied on spies, informants, and covert operations to gain the upper hand in a world where knowledge truly was power. Whether in the courts of China or the streets of Rome, the gathering of intelligence was a high-stakes game that shaped the destinies of kingdoms. Take ancient China, for instance. During the Warring States period, espionage was woven into the fabric of political strategy. The philosopher Sun Tzu, in his seminal work The Art of War, dedicated an entire chapter to the use of spies, emphasizing their importance in gaining an edge over rivals. He identified 5 types of spies: local spies, inward spies, converted spies, doomed spies, and surviving spies. Each had a specific role, from infiltrating enemy ranks to spreading disinformation. The Han Dynasty, which eventually unified China, mastered these tactics, using spies to sow discord among rival states and gather critical information about their weaknesses. Without these covert operatives, the Qin might never have risen to dominance. The Roman Empire, too, understood the value of hidden intelligence. Roman emperors employed a network of informants known as frumentarii, originally grain officials who later became imperial spies. These agents traveled across the empire, collecting information on potential rebellions, corruption, and external threats. Their work was essential in maintaining the stability of a vast and diverse empire. But espionage in Rome wasn't limited to the state. Ambitious politicians and generals often used their own networks of spies to outmaneuver rivals. Julius Caesar, for example, was known for his skill in gathering intelligence, which he used to anticipate the movements of his enemies during the Gallic Wars and the Roman Civil War. Espionage wasn't just about gathering information, it was about shaping outcomes. In the ancient world, the line between intelligence and deception was often blurred. Spies didn't just report on enemy plans, they actively worked to disrupt them. In Persia, the royal court employed a secret police force known as the eyes and ears of the king, tasked with uncovering plots and ensuring loyalty across the empire. These agents carried out covert operations, from intercepting messages to orchestrating the downfall of disloyal officials. Their work was ruthless but effective, helping to maintain the cohesion of one of the largest empires of the ancient world. The stakes of espionage were immense. A single piece of hidden information could determine the outcome of a war or the survival of a dynasty. During the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, the Athenian general Alcibiades famously defected to Sparta, bringing with him critical knowledge of Athenian strategies. His betrayal turned the tide of the conflict, demonstrating how one individual's access to secret information could alter the course of history. What made espionage so effective was its invisibility. Unlike armies or treaties, the work of spies left no visible traces, yet its impact was profound. It was a weapon that could be wielded silently, striking at the heart of an enemy's plans before they even knew they were under attack. For ancient rulers, espionage was more than just a tactic. It was a necessity, a way to navigate the treacherous waters of politics and war. As we uncover these hidden narratives, we begin to see how the ancient world was shaped not just by visible battles and grand alliances, but by the quiet, unseen efforts of those who moved in the shadows. The spies of antiquity remind us that history is often written not just by the victors, but by those who knew how to listen, observe, and act without being seen. And in understanding their role, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity of ancient politics and the timeless art of staying one step ahead. Nestled in the azure waters of the Aegean Sea, the Minoan civilization was once a beacon of innovation and culture. Famous for their sprawling palaces, vibrant frescoes, and intricate trade networks, the Minoans thrived on the island of Crete, shaping the Mediterranean world around them. Yet around 1450 BC, this advanced society vanished almost overnight, leaving behind a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. What could have brought down a civilization that seemed so resilient, so ahead of its time? The answers lie in a combination of political turmoil, natural disasters, and the hidden vulnerabilities of even the most sophisticated societies. One of the most dramatic theories surrounding the Minoan collapse points to a cataclysmic event, the eruption of the Thura volcano, located on the nearby island of Santorini. This explosion, one of the largest in recorded history, would have unleashed tsunamis, earthquakes, and a thick blanket of ash, devastating the Minoan cities and crippling their economy. The destruction of their ports and trade routes would have been a severe blow, cutting off the lifeblood of their society. Yet, while the eruption may have been the catalyst, it wasn't the sole cause of their downfall. The Minoans faced other, less visible threats that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Political instability within the Minoan world likely played a significant role. Unlike other ancient civilizations, the Minoans didn't appear to have a centralized monarchy or a rigid hierarchy. Instead, their society was governed by a network of palace complexes, each ruling over its own region. While this decentralized system may have worked during times of peace, It left the Minoans vulnerable to internal conflict and external invasion. As resources grew scarce in the aftermath of the Thura eruption, rival factions within Crete may have turned against each other, weakening the civilization from within. At the same time, external pressures began to mount. The Minoans were not alone in the Mediterranean. Rival powers, like the Mycenaeans on mainland Greece, had long admired and coveted Minoan wealth and influence. With the Minoans weakened by natural disasters and internal strife, the Mycenaeans saw an opportunity to assert their dominance. Archaeological evidence suggests that Mycenaean forces may have invaded Crete, taking control of key sites and absorbing Minoan culture into their own. This invasion, whether violent or gradual, marked the end of an era, as the once dominant Minoans faded into history. Yet, the story of the Minoans isn't just one of collapse. It's a testament to the fragility of even the most advanced civilizations. Their downfall reminds us that no society, no matter how prosperous or innovative, is immune to the forces of nature, the pressures of politics, or the ambitions of rivals. The Minoans built a world of beauty and complexity, but they were also deeply interconnected with the world around them, a world that could turn against them in an instant. As we unravel the hidden narratives of the Minoan civilization, we're reminded that history is shaped not just by the triumphs of great powers, but by their vulnerabilities. The Minoan story challenges us to consider how the choices we make, whether in governance, trade, or diplomacy, can determine the fate of an entire civilization. And in understanding their rise and fall, we gain not just insight into the past, but a deeper appreciation for the delicate balance that sustains all great societies. The Persian Empire, once the largest and most powerful realm the ancient world had ever seen, stretched from the Indus River to the Aegean Sea, a colossal tapestry of cultures, languages, and peoples united under a single crown. Yet for all its grandeur, this empire founded by Cyrus the Great and expanded by rulers like Darius and Xerxes met its end not with a slow fade, but in a sudden, dramatic collapse. How could an empire so vast, so seemingly invincible, crumble so completely? The answer lies in a web of political intrigue, internal strife, and the relentless ambition of a young conqueror named Alexander the Great. At its height, the Persian Empire was a marvel of governance, its rulers adept at balancing the diverse needs of their subjects. But beneath the surface of this unity, cracks began to form. One of the most significant challenges came from within. Satraps, the governors of the empire's provinces, often wielded considerable power, and their loyalty to the central throne was not always guaranteed. Over time, some satraps began to rebel, seeking greater autonomy or even independence. These internal uprisings, though often quashed, drained the empire's resources and weakened its cohesion. The Persian kings, preoccupied with maintaining control over their vast territories, struggled to address these rebellions without alienating other regions. This delicate balancing act created vulnerabilities that would prove fatal. External threats compounded the problem. To the west, the Greek city-states had long been a thorn in Persia's side. Despite their smaller size, the Greeks united under leaders like Themistocles, and later Alexander the Great were fiercely independent and resourceful. The Persian Wars, a series of conflicts between Persia and the Greek states, exposed the empire's limitations. Though Persia's armies were vast, they were often outmaneuvered by the Greeks' superior tactics and unity. These clashes not only weakened Persia's military, but also emboldened its enemies, who saw the empire as less invincible than it appeared. Perhaps the most devastating blow came from betrayal. As Alexander of Macedon began his campaign against Persia, he found allies among the empire's own subjects. Persian nobles, disillusioned with their rulers or enticed by promises of power, secretly supported Alexander's advance. One of the most notorious examples was Bessus, a satrap who betrayed the Persian king Darius III, leading to his capture and eventual assassination. These hidden alliances and betrayals fractured the empire's unity, leaving it ill-prepared to face the Macedonian onslaught. Alexander's conquest of Persia was as much a triumph of strategy as it was of military might. He exploited the empire's internal divisions, using diplomacy and psychological warfare to undermine Persian morale. His decisive victory at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC marked the end of Persian dominance, as Alexander claimed the throne and began his transformation of the ancient world. The fall of the Persian Empire offers a sobering lesson in the fragility of power. Even the mightiest empires are vulnerable to the combined forces of internal discord and external ambition. The Persian kings, for all their wealth and influence, failed to address the underlying tensions within their realm, leaving it open to collapse. Their story reminds us that no empire, no matter how grand, is immune to the consequences of political mismanagement. As we reflect on this pivotal moment in history, we're reminded that the rise and fall of empires isn't just about armies and battles. It's about the decisions made in the halls of power, the alliances forged and broken, and the delicate balance that sustains any civilization. The Persian Empire's legacy endures not just in its ruins, but in the timeless lessons it offers about the nature of power, ambition, and the ever-present risk of decline. And in understanding its fall, we gain not just insight into the past, but a deeper appreciation for the forces that continue to shape our world today. In the heart of ancient Anatolia, where the fertile plains met the rugged mountains, the Kingdom of Lydia emerged as a beacon of wealth and ingenuity. Famous for its legendary riches, most notably the invention of the world's first coinage, Lydia was a kingdom that didn't just thrive. It transformed the way the ancient world thought about money and power. But behind the glittering gold and bustling marketplaces lay a story of political cunning, shifting alliances, and the constant tension between ambition and survival. How did this once dominant kingdom rise to such heights, and what forces ultimately led to its decline? Lydia's rise to prominence was no accident. Its location in western Anatolia placed it at the crossroads of major trade routes connecting the Aegean Sea to the Persian Empire. The Lydians capitalized on this strategic position, becoming masters of commerce and trade. Their innovation in coinage using stamped pieces of electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, revolutionized economies by standardizing value and simplifying transactions. This wasn't just an economic leap, it was a political tool, allowing Lydia's rulers to project power and influence far beyond their borders. Yet, wealth alone couldn't secure Lydia's dominance. Its rulers, like the famed King Croesus, were shrewd politicians who understood the delicate art of diplomacy. Croesus, often remembered for his proverbial wealth, was also a master of alliances. He forged ties with powerful neighbors, including the Greek city-states and the rising Persian Empire, using marriage pacts and mutual trade agreements to bolster his kingdom's security. But these alliances were always a double-edged sword. While they provided stability, they also entangled Lydia in the complex web of ancient politics, where loyalty was often fleeting and betrayal a constant threat. The Lydians' relationship with Persia is a prime example of this delicate balance. Initially, Croesus saw Persia as a potential ally, even sending envoys to consult the Oracle of Delphi about a possible alliance. However, when the oracle cryptically advised that crossing the Halys River would lead to the fall of a great empire, Croesus misinterpreted the prophecy, believing it referred to Persia. Emboldened, he launched a campaign against Cyrus the Great, only to discover too late that the empire destined to fall was his own. The Persian conquest of Lydia in 546 BC marked the end of its independence, a stark reminder of the risks inherent in ancient diplomacy. Trade, the very foundation of Lydia's wealth, also played a role in its decline. As Persian control tightened, the once thriving trade networks that had fueled Lydia's economy began to shift. The Persians redirected resources and commerce to serve their own empire, leaving Lydia increasingly isolated. Without the flow of goods and wealth that had sustained it, the kingdom struggled to maintain its former glory. Yet Lydia's story isn't just one of rise and fall, it's a lesson in adaptability. For centuries, its rulers navigated the treacherous waters of ancient politics with skill and ingenuity, balancing trade, diplomacy, and military strategy to secure their place in the world. Their downfall serves as a reminder that even the wealthiest and most innovative kingdoms are vulnerable to the changing tides of history. The Lydians' ability to adapt, or in the case of Croesus, to misjudge the need for it, shaped their destiny, offering timeless insights into the challenges of leadership and the importance of foresight. As we uncover the hidden narratives of Lydia, we're reminded that the past is filled with stories of ambition, resilience, and the ever-present need to adapt. The Kingdom of Lydia may no longer exist, but its legacy endures in the coins we use, the alliances we forge, and the lessons we carry forward. And in understanding its rise and fall, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities of ancient politics and the enduring question of how to navigate a world where change is the only constant. The art of persuasion is as old as civilization itself, and in the ancient world, propaganda wasn't just a tool, it was a cornerstone of political power. Long before the age of mass media, rulers understood the importance of controlling the narrative, using art, architecture, and inscriptions to project their authority and shape the beliefs of their people. Take the Assyrian kings, for example. These rulers were masters of propaganda, crafting a public image that was as formidable as their armies. From towering stone reliefs depicting their military conquests to grandiose inscriptions boasting of their divine favor, the Assyrians left no stone unturned in their quest to dominate both the battlefield and the minds of their subjects. One of the most striking examples of Assyrian propaganda can be found in the palace of King Ashurbanipal. The walls of his grand halls were adorned with vivid carvings showcasing his triumphs: lions hunted, enemies vanquished, and cities subdued. These images weren't just decorative, they were carefully designed to instill awe and fear. By presenting himself as both a warrior and a protector, Ashurbanipal reinforced his legitimacy, ensuring that his people saw him as not just a king, but a godlike figure chosen to lead. This wasn't just art, it was a calculated effort to control perception and consolidate power, but the Assyrians weren't alone in their use of propaganda. Across the ancient world, rulers employed similar tactics to craft their legacies. In Egypt, pharaohs like Ramses II used colossal statues and sprawling temple complexes to project their divine authority. The famous Battle of Kadesh, for instance, was immortalized in carvings that depicted Ramses as a fearless hero, single-handedly turning the tide of battle. While the reality of the conflict was far more complex, these depictions served a clear purpose: to elevate Ramses' status and cement his place in history. Even the Romans, known for their pragmatism, understood the power of propaganda. Emperors like Augustus used coins, monuments, and public spectacles to promote their rule. The Ara Pacis, or Altar of Peace, was one such masterpiece of political messaging. Dedicated to the peace and prosperity brought by Augustus' reign, it sent a clear message: under his leadership, Rome was entering a golden age. This narrative wasn't just for the elite. It was aimed at every citizen, from senators to slaves, ensuring that the emperor's vision of stability and order was widely accepted. What's fascinating about these ancient forms of propaganda is how they reveal the hidden narratives of power. Behind every statue, every inscription, was a carefully crafted story designed to serve a political agenda. These rulers weren't just building monuments, they were building myths, shaping how their reigns would be remembered for generations. And while the methods have evolved, the underlying principle remains the same: control the story, and you control the people. As we explore these ancient strategies, we're reminded that propaganda isn't just about manipulation, it's about survival. In a world where power was often precarious, rulers used every tool at their disposal to maintain their grip on authority. Their ability to shape perception, to turn their achievements into legends, was as crucial as any military victory. And in understanding these tactics, we gain not just insight into the past, but a deeper appreciation for the enduring power of storytelling in politics. The next time you look at an ancient monument or read an inscription, remember, what you're seeing isn't just history, it's a carefully constructed narrative, a glimpse into the minds of rulers who understood that the pen, or the chisel, could be mightier than the sword. Deep in the lush jungles of what is now Mexico, the Olmec civilization once thrived as one of the earliest and most influential societies in Mesoamerica. Known for their colossal stone heads, intricate artwork, and advanced understanding of agriculture, the Olmecs laid the groundwork for future civilizations like the Maya and Aztecs. Yet, around 400 BC, this vibrant culture vanished, leaving behind a mystery that continues to baffle historians and archaeologists. What caused the collapse of a society so foundational to the ancient Americas? The answers, like the Olmecs themselves, remain shrouded in intrigue. One of the most compelling theories points to political instability. The Olmecs were organized into city-states, with centers like San Lorenzo and La Venta serving as hubs of power and culture. These cities were ruled by elite classes, who likely held both political and religious authority. Over time, tensions between these city-states may have escalated into conflict, fracturing the unity that had once sustained the civilization. Archaeological evidence, such as the deliberate destruction of monuments and buildings, suggests that internal strife could have played a significant role in their decline. Without a centralized authority to maintain order, the Olmecs may have succumbed to infighting, weakening their society from within. Environmental factors also likely contributed to the Olmec collapse. The region's tropical climate, while fertile, was prone to extreme weather patterns, including devastating floods and droughts. Some researchers believe that shifts in river courses or prolonged dry spells could have disrupted agriculture, the backbone of the Olmec economy. Without reliable food sources, the population may have faced famine, forcing people to abandon their cities in search of more stable environments. This theory is supported by evidence of rapid depopulation in key Olmec centers, suggesting that environmental pressures pushed the civilization to a breaking point. External invasions are another possibility. While the Olmecs were dominant in their region, they were not isolated. Neighboring groups, perhaps envious of their wealth or inspired by their culture, may have launched attacks on Olmec cities. Some scholars point to the rise of new powers in Mesoamerica, such as the early Maya, as potential threats to Olmec dominance. However, without clear evidence of widespread warfare or destruction, this theory remains speculative, adding another layer of mystery to the Olmec story. What makes the Olmec collapse particularly enigmatic is the lack of written records. Unlike later Mesoamerican civilizations, the Olmecs left behind no decipherable texts, leaving historians to piece together their story through archaeology and symbolism. Their art and artifacts offer tantalizing clues, depictions of rulers, gods, and rituals, but these fragments are open to interpretation. Were the colossal heads portraits of kings, or perhaps representations of deities? Were the jade figurines symbols of power, or offerings to the gods? The absence of written language has turned the Olmecs into a puzzle, a civilization whose secrets may never be fully unlocked. This mystery, however, is part of what makes the Olmecs so fascinating. Their story reminds us that history is not always neatly recorded or easily understood. Sometimes, the most compelling narratives are those that linger in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. The Olmecs may have vanished, but their legacy endures in the cultures they influenced and the questions they left behind. As we explore the hidden narratives of the Olmec civilization, we're reminded that some chapters of history are written in whispers, not shouts. Their collapse challenges us to consider how much of the past remains unknowable, how much of it lies buried beneath the earth or lost to time. And in that uncertainty, we find not just mystery, but a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human history, a reminder that the stories we tell are as much about what we don't know as what we do. The Gupta Empire, often hailed as India's golden age, was a time of unparalleled cultural and scientific achievement. From the poetry of Kalidasa to the groundbreaking discoveries in mathematics and astronomy, the Guptas left an indelible mark on history. But even the brightest golden ages can dim, and the fall of the Gupta Empire is a stark reminder that no civilization, no matter how glorious, is immune to the forces of decline. So, what brought down this once mighty empire? The answer lies in a complex interplay of internal corruption, external threats, and the hidden fractures that ultimately shattered its foundation. At its peak, the Gupta Empire was a model of stability and prosperity, its rulers adept at balancing power and diplomacy. But as the empire expanded, cracks began to appear in its political structure. One of the most pressing issues was the growing corruption within the imperial administration. Local governors, known as samantas, were granted significant autonomy to manage their regions. Over time, many of these governors became more focused on personal gain than on serving the empire. They hoarded wealth, ignored the needs of their people, and even withheld taxes meant for the central treasury. This erosion of trust and accountability weakened the empire from within, leaving it ill-prepared to face the challenges ahead. External threats only compounded these internal struggles. The Gupta Empire faced relentless pressure from invading forces, particularly the Huna tribes from Central Asia. These nomadic warriors, skilled in mounted warfare, launched devastating raids into Gupta territory, sacking cities and disrupting trade routes. Emperor Skandagupta, one of the empire's last great rulers, managed to repel the Huna invasions temporarily, but his victories came at a high cost. The constant state of war drained the empire's resources, leaving its defenses stretched thin and its economy in disarray. Skandagupta's reign, though marked by military success, also highlighted the growing vulnerabilities of the Gupta state. Hidden alliances and betrayals further destabilized the empire. As the Gupta rulers struggled to maintain control, regional leaders began to forge their own alliances, often at the expense of the central authority. Some Samantas secretly collaborated with invading forces, trading loyalty for promises of power and protection. Others simply declared independence, carving out their own kingdoms from the crumbling empire. These acts of betrayal fragmented the Gupta realm, turning what was once a unified empire into a patchwork of rival states. The decisions of key figures also played a pivotal role in the empire's decline. Skandagupta's successors lacked his military acumen and political foresight, failing to address the empire's mounting challenges. Instead of uniting against external threats, they squabbled over the throne, their infighting further weakening the Gupta state. By the time the Huna invasions resumed in the 6th century, the empire was too fractured to mount an effective defense. One by one, its cities fell, its grandeur reduced to ruins. The fall of the Gupta Empire offers a sobering lesson in the fragility of power. No matter how prosperous or enduring a civilization may seem, it is never immune to the consequences of political mismanagement. The Guptas' failure to address internal corruption, their inability to adapt to external threats, and the betrayals that fractured their unity all contributed to their downfall. Their story reminds us that the greatest threats to an empire often come not from outside its borders, but from within its own walls. As we reflect on the hidden narratives of the Gupta Empire's decline, we're reminded that history is as much about the choices we make as the challenges we face. The Guptas' legacy endures not just in their achievements, but in the lessons they offer about the delicate balance of power and the importance of unity. And in understanding their fall, we gain not just insight into the past, but a timeless warning for the future. High in the rugged mountains of southern Arabia, the Kingdom of Saba once stood as a glittering jewel of the ancient world. Renowned for its wealth, its towering temples, and its legendary queen often associated with the biblical figure of Sheba, Saba was a powerhouse of trade and diplomacy. Its rulers didn't just amass riches, they wove a complex web of alliances and rivalries that shaped the fate of the Arabian Peninsula. But what made Saba so extraordinary, and why did this once thriving kingdom vanish into the sands of time? The story of Saba is a tale of ambition, resilience, and the delicate balance of power in a world where survival often depended on the ability to adapt. Saba's rise to prominence was no accident. Situated in what is now modern-day Yemen, the kingdom controlled the lucrative trade routes that carried frankincense and myrrh, precious commodities in the ancient world. These aromatic resins, used in religious rituals and as luxury goods, were in high demand from the Mediterranean to the Indus Valley. By monopolizing this trade, the Sabaeans amassed immense wealth, which they used to build grand cities and fortify their position as a regional superpower. Their capital, Marib, became a bustling metropolis, its towering dam a marvel of engineering that sustained the kingdom's agriculture and ensured its prosperity. But wealth alone couldn't secure Saba's dominance. The Sabaean rulers were masters of diplomacy, forging alliances with neighboring states while skillfully navigating the shifting tides of ancient politics. They understood that in a region as volatile as Arabia, power wasn't just about military might, it was about knowing when to negotiate and when to strike. Treaties and marriage pacts were common tools in their arsenal, used to strengthen bonds with allies and neutralize potential threats. Yet, these alliances were always fragile, often tested by the ambitions of rival kingdoms and the ever-present threat of betrayal. Saba's relationship with the neighboring kingdom of Himyar is a prime example of this delicate balance. At times, the two kingdoms were allies, united by shared interests and mutual trade. But as Himyar grew in power, tensions flared, leading to a series of conflicts that would ultimately weaken both states. The Sabaeans, though skilled in diplomacy, struggled to maintain their dominance in the face of Himyar's rising influence. These clashes weren't just about territory, they were about control of the trade routes that had made Saba so wealthy. Without these lifelines, the kingdom's economic foundation began to crumble, leaving it vulnerable to decline. Environmental challenges also played a role in Saba's downfall. The Great Marib Dam, once a symbol of the kingdom's ingenuity, began to falter under the strain of repeated floods and poor maintenance. Without the dam to sustain its agriculture, Saba faced food shortages and economic turmoil, further destabilizing its political structure. The kingdom's reliance on trade, while a source of great wealth, also left it exposed to external pressures. As new trade routes emerged and rival powers rose to prominence, Saba found itself increasingly isolated, its once thriving markets growing quieter with each passing year. What makes Saba's story so compelling is how it reflects the interconnectedness of the ancient world. Its rise and fall weren't just the result of internal decisions. They were shaped by the actions of neighboring states, the demands of distant markets, and the forces of nature. Saba's rulers understood this interconnectedness, using it to their advantage for centuries, but in the end, even their skill and resilience couldn't shield them from the changing tides of history. As we uncover the hidden narratives of the Kingdom of Saba, we're reminded that no kingdom exists in isolation. The decisions of one ruler, the ambitions of a rival state, or the shifting currents of trade could ripple across the ancient world, shaping the destinies of entire civilizations. Saba's legacy endures not just in its ruins, but in the lessons it offers about the delicate balance of power, the importance of adaptability, and the timeless truth that even the mightiest kingdoms are part of a larger, ever-changing tapestry. And in understanding their story, we gain a deeper appreciation for the forces that continue to connect us all. In the shadowy corridors of ancient power, where ambition often outshone loyalty, assassination emerged as one of the most dramatic and decisive tools of political change. It wasn't just a crime, it was a calculated act, a way to eliminate rivals, seize thrones, or shift the course of entire empires. And while it may seem brutal to us today, in the ancient world, assassination was often seen as a necessary, even inevitable, part of the game of power. Take the assassination of Julius Caesar, a moment that has echoed through the ages as a turning point in Roman history. Caesar's rise to power was meteoric, his military victories and populist reforms earning him both adoration and enemies. But his ambition to centralize power alarmed the Roman Senate, particularly a group of senators who saw themselves as defenders of the Republic. On the Ides of March in 44 BCE, these conspirators, led by Brutus and Cassius, struck. Caesar's assassination wasn't just a personal vendetta, it was an attempt to restore what they saw as the balance of power. Yet, the outcome was far from what they intended. Instead of saving the Republic, Caesar's death plunged Rome into a series of civil wars, ultimately leading to the rise of the Roman Empire under his heir, Augustus. The assassination wasn't just a political act, it was a catalyst that reshaped the very fabric of Roman governance. Across the Mediterranean, another assassination reshaped the destiny of a rising power. Philip II of Macedon, the father of Alexander the Great, had spent years consolidating his kingdom and preparing for an invasion of Persia. But in 336 BCE, just as his ambitions were about to be realized, Philip was assassinated at his daughter's wedding. The killer, a young nobleman named Pausanias, had personal grievances, but many suspected deeper political motives. Some historians believe that Philip's death was orchestrated by factions within his own court, perhaps even with the knowledge of his wife, Olympias, and his son, Alexander. Whatever the truth, Philip's assassination cleared the way for Alexander to ascend the throne and to embark on one of the most extraordinary military campaigns in history. In this case, assassination didn't just change the ruler, it altered the trajectory of an entire civilization. These examples reveal a stark truth. Assassination was more than just a violent act, it was a tool of political strategy. In a world where power was often concentrated in the hands of a single ruler, removing that figure could create a vacuum, allowing new leaders to rise or old systems to crumble. Assassinations were rarely impulsive, they were the result of hidden plots, carefully planned by those who stood to gain the most. Whether driven by personal ambition, ideological conviction, or sheer desperation, assassins and their conspirators understood the stakes. They knew that one well-placed dagger could change the course of history, yet for all its effectiveness, assassination was a double-edged sword. While it could remove a tyrant or a rival, it could also destabilize a kingdom, sparking chaos and infighting. The aftermath of Caesar's assassination is a prime example. What began as an attempt to restore the Republic ended in its downfall. Similarly, Philip's murder, while paving the way for Alexander's rise, also exposed the fragility of power in a world where loyalty was often fleeting. As we examine these hidden narratives of assassination in ancient politics, we're reminded that the line between heroism and treachery was often blurred. What one faction saw as a righteous act, another might view as a heinous crime. And while the methods may have been brutal, the motivations were deeply human: ambition, fear, and the desire to shape the world according to one's vision. These stories challenge us to consider the complexities of power, the risks of ambition, and the enduring impact of a single, decisive act. In the end, the role of assassination in ancient politics wasn't just about death, it was about change. It was a reminder that in the high-stakes game of power, even the mightiest rulers were not untouchable. And as we explore these moments of upheaval, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces that shaped the ancient world, and the echoes of those forces that still resonate today. Along the arid coast of modern-day Peru, where the desert meets the sea, the Norte Chico civilization once flourished as one of the earliest complex societies in the Americas. Emerging around 3000 BC, this enigmatic culture predated even the Inca by millennia, yet it vanished as mysteriously as it appeared. Without towering pyramids or sprawling cities, Norte Chico's legacy lies in its monumental architecture, intricate irrigation systems, and the tantalizing question of how such an advanced society could collapse without leaving behind a single written word. What caused this ancient civilization to fade into obscurity? The answers, much like the civilization itself, remain shrouded in mystery. One of the most intriguing theories centers on political instability. Norte Chico was not a centralized empire, but a network of interconnected communities, each with its own leaders and hierarchies. While this decentralized structure may have fostered cooperation during times of prosperity, it could have become a liability when faced with crisis. Without a unified authority to coordinate responses to challenges, whether environmental, social, or economic, the civilization may have fragmented, its cohesion crumbling under pressure. Archaeological evidence suggests that some sites were abandoned suddenly, hinting at internal conflict or the breakdown of social order. Were rival leaders vying for control, or did the people simply lose faith in their rulers? The absence of written records leaves these questions unresolved, adding to the intrigue. Environmental changes likely played a significant role as well. Norte Chico's survival depended on its ability to harness the scarce water resources of the desert, using sophisticated irrigation systems to sustain agriculture. But what if those systems failed? Some researchers point to evidence of prolonged droughts or shifting river patterns, which could have disrupted food production and strained the civilization's resources. Imagine the desperation of a society built on the edge of survival, watching their lifelines dry up. Without the ability to adapt quickly, Norte Chico may have faced famine, forcing its people to abandon their homes in search of more stable environments. External invasions are another possibility, though harder to prove. While Norte Chico's remote location might have shielded it from immediate threats, the rise of neighboring cultures could have posed a risk. As new societies emerged in the region, competition for resources and territory may have escalated into conflict. Evidence of defensive structures or signs of violence at some sites could hint at such struggles, but without clear records, these theories remain speculative. Did Norte Chico fall to invaders, or did it succumb to the pressures of a changing world? The truth may lie buried beneath layers of sand and time. What makes Norte Chico's story so compelling is the absence of written records. Unlike other ancient civilizations, which left behind inscriptions, scrolls, or tablets, Norte Chico's people communicated through architecture and art. Their monumental structures, such as the pyramids of Cairo, stand as silent witnesses to their ingenuity, but they offer few clues about the political or social forces that shaped their society. Were their leaders benevolent or tyrannical? Did they face rebellions, betrayals, or alliances gone wrong? These hidden narratives remain locked in the stones, waiting for future discoveries to unlock their secrets. The mystery of Norte Chico reminds us that some chapters of history are written in whispers, not shouts. Its collapse challenges us to consider how much of the past remains unknowable, how much of it lies buried beneath the earth or lost to time. And in that uncertainty, we find not just mystery, but a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human history. The Norte Chico civilization may have vanished, but its legacy endures in the questions it leaves behind, questions that remind us of the fragile balance that sustains all great societies. As we explore these hidden narratives, we're reminded that the past is not always a clear story. Sometimes it's a puzzle, a collection of fragments that hint at a larger picture we may never fully see. And in that incompleteness, we find a powerful truth. Some secrets of ancient politics may never be fully understood, but they continue to inspire us to seek, to question, and to imagine the worlds that came before our own. The Maurya Empire, once a sprawling dominion stretching across much of the Indian subcontinent, stood as a testament to the heights of ancient power and organization. Under rulers like Chandragupta Maurya and his grandson Ashoka, it became a beacon of governance, culture, and military might. Yet, even the most formidable empires are not immune to the forces of decline, and the fall of the Maurya Empire is a story of political intrigue, hidden alliances, and the consequences of mismanagement. How did an empire so vast and well-organized crumble? The answers lie in a web of internal corruption, external pressures, and the decisions of key figures who shaped its destiny. At its zenith, the Maurya Empire was a marvel of administration, with a centralized bureaucracy, efficient tax systems, and a vast network of spies to maintain order. But as the empire expanded, cracks began to form in its foundation. One of the most significant challenges came from within corruption. Local officials, known as Mahamatras, were entrusted with managing the empire's vast territories. Over time, many of these officials grew more focused on personal gain than on serving the people. They hoarded wealth, exploited their positions, and ignored the needs of the provinces they governed. This erosion of trust and accountability weakened the empire's cohesion, leaving it vulnerable to both internal dissent and external threats. External pressures further strained the Maurya Empire's resources. To the northwest, the empire faced constant threats from invading forces, particularly the Greco-Bactrian kingdoms that emerged in the wake of Alexander the Great's campaigns. These incursions forced the Mauryan rulers to divert significant resources to their defenses, stretching their military and economic capabilities. At the same time, the empire struggled to maintain control over its far-flung territories, with regional leaders increasingly asserting their independence. The Maurya Empire, once a unified force, began to fragment under the weight of these challenges. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the empire's decline lies in the hidden alliances and betrayals that undermined its stability. Emperor Ashoka, often remembered for his embrace of Buddhism and his efforts to promote peace, played a pivotal role in shaping the empire's fate. While his reign is celebrated for its cultural and moral achievements, some historians argue that his policies may have inadvertently weakened the empire's military and political foundations. By prioritizing nonviolence and reducing the army's role, Ashoka may have left the empire ill-prepared to face external threats. Additionally, his focus on religious and ethical governance may have alienated some of the empire's more pragmatic leaders, creating divisions within the ruling elite. These internal divisions only deepened after Ashoka's death. His successors lacked his vision and authority, and the empire's unity began to unravel. Rival factions within the royal family vied for control, leading to a series of weak and ineffective rulers. Without strong leadership, the empire's administration faltered, and its once efficient systems of governance began to break down. The Maurya Empire, which had once been a model of stability, found itself mired in chaos and in fighting. The final blow came from within. The last Mauryan emperor, Brihadratha, was assassinated by his own general, Pushyamitra Shunga, who then founded the Shunga dynasty. This act of betrayal marked the end of the Maurya Empire, a once mighty civilization reduced to a footnote in history. Yet, its fall offers a sobering lesson in the fragility of power. Even the most enduring empires are vulnerable to the consequences of political mismanagement, internal corruption, and the shifting tides of history. As we reflect on the hidden narratives of the Maurya Empire's decline, we're reminded that the decisions of leaders, both wise and flawed, can shape the destiny of an entire civilization. The Maurya Empire's legacy endures not just in its achievements, but in the lessons it offers about the importance of unity, the dangers of complacency, and the ever-present risk of decline. And in understanding its fall, we gain not just insight into the past, but a timeless warning for the future. In the lush river deltas of Southeast Asia, where the Mekong River meets the sea, the Kingdom of Funan once stood as a thriving hub of trade and culture. Emerging around the 1st century CE, Funan was more than just a kingdom. It was a bridge between worlds, connecting the markets of China and India with the scattered islands of the Malay archipelago. But what made Funan so extraordinary, And how did this once mighty empire fade into the shadows of history? The story of Funan is a tale of ambition, adaptation, and the delicate dance of power in a region where trade routes were as vital as armies. Funan's rise to prominence was no accident. Its strategic location along the Mekong Delta made it a natural crossroads for maritime trade. Ships laden with silk, spices, and precious gems flowed through its ports, bringing wealth and influence to its rulers. But Funan wasn't just a passive beneficiary of trade, it was an active player, its kings using diplomacy and military strength to secure their position. They forged alliances with distant powers, such as the Han Dynasty in China, while also consolidating control over local rivals. This dual strategy of outreach and dominance allowed Funan to thrive, its cities bustling with merchants, artisans, and scholars from across the ancient world. Yet, Funan's success wasn't solely built on trade. Its rulers were also skilled in the art of statecraft, blending diplomacy with a keen understanding of their region's political landscape. They crafted a network of vassal states, ensuring loyalty through a combination of military might and economic incentives. Funan's kings weren't just traders, they were strategists, adept at navigating the complex web of alliances and rivalries that defined Southeast Asia. Their ability to balance these forces was key to their dominance, allowing them to project power far beyond their borders. But even the most skilled rulers couldn't shield Funan from the challenges of a changing world. Over time, the kingdom faced increasing pressure from neighboring states, particularly the rising power of Chenla to the north. These conflicts weren't just about territory, they were about control of the trade routes that had made Funan so wealthy. As Chenla grew stronger, Funan found itself squeezed, its once secure alliances beginning to fracture. The kingdom's ability to adapt, which had been its greatest strength, was now put to the test. Trade, the lifeblood of Funan's economy, also played a role in its decline. As new maritime routes emerged, bypassing the Mekong Delta, Funan's ports began to lose their prominence. The kingdom's wealth, so dependent on its position as a trade hub, began to dwindle. Without the flow of goods and ideas that had sustained it, Funan struggled to maintain its influence. Environmental changes, such as shifting river patterns, may have further strained its resources, adding to the pressure. Over time, the once thriving cities of Funan fell silent, their grandeur fading into the jungle. What makes Funan's story so compelling is how it reflects the interconnectedness of the ancient world. Its rise and fall weren't just the result of internal decisions. They were shaped by the actions of distant empires, the demands of global trade, and the relentless march of time. Funan's rulers understood this interconnectedness, using it to their advantage for centuries, but in the end, even their skill and resilience couldn't shield them from the changing tides of history. As we uncover the hidden narratives of Funan, we're reminded that no kingdom exists in isolation. The decisions of one ruler, the ambitions of a rival state, or the shifting currents of trade could ripple across the ancient world, shaping the destinies of entire civilizations. Funan's legacy endures not just in its ruins, but in the lessons it offers about the delicate balance of power, the importance of adaptability, and the timeless truth that even the mightiest kingdoms are part of a larger, ever-changing tapestry. And in understanding their story, we gain a deeper appreciation for the forces that continue to connect us all across oceans, across time, and across the stories we tell. In the ancient world, where the clash of armies often decided the fate of kingdoms, diplomacy was the quiet yet powerful force that could turn enemies into allies and chaos into order. Far from the battlefield, In the halls of palaces and the tents of envoys, rulers and their representatives engaged in a delicate dance of negotiation, forging treaties and alliances that could secure peace or prolong conflict. Diplomacy wasn't just a tool, it was an art, a way to navigate the treacherous waters of ancient politics without drawing a sword, and nowhere is this more evident than in the story of the Treaty of Kadesh, a landmark agreement between two of the ancient world's greatest powers, the Hittites and the Egyptians. For decades, the Hittites and Egyptians had been locked in a bitter struggle for dominance in the Near East. The Battle of Kadesh, fought around 1274 BCE, was a turning point, a brutal clash that ended in a stalemate. Both sides suffered heavy losses, and neither could claim a decisive victory, but instead of escalating the conflict, the Hittite king Hattusili III and the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II chose a different path: negotiation. The result was the Treaty of Kadesh, one of the earliest known peace treaties in history. This wasn't just a document, it was a masterpiece of diplomacy, carefully crafted to address the grievances of both sides. It established boundaries, pledged mutual defense against common enemies, and even included clauses for the extradition of fugitives. What's remarkable about the Treaty of Kadesh isn't just its content, it's the way it reflects the sophistication of ancient diplomacy. Both sides recognized that endless war was unsustainable. They understood that stability and prosperity depended on finding common ground, even with a sworn enemy. The treaty wasn't just about ending a conflict, it was about laying the foundation for a new relationship, one built on mutual respect and shared interests. And it worked. For decades, the Hittites and Egyptians maintained peace, allowing both empires to flourish. But diplomacy in the ancient world wasn't always so formal. Often, it took place in the shadows, through secret negotiations and hidden alliances. Take the example of the Roman Republic and Carthage. Before the Punic Wars erupted, these two powers engaged in a series of covert talks, each trying to outmaneuver the other without resorting to open conflict. Spies and envoys moved between the cities, carrying messages and proposals designed to secure advantages or sow discord. These hidden negotiations shaped the course of history, often determining the outcomes of wars before the first battle was even fought. Diplomacy also played a crucial role in the rise of the Maurya Empire in ancient India. Emperor Chandragupta Maurya, the empire's founder, wasn't just a conqueror, he was a skilled diplomat. He formed alliances with neighboring states, negotiated trade agreements, and even sent envoys to the court of Alexander the Great's successor, Seleucus. These diplomatic efforts allowed Chandragupta to expand his empire without constant warfare, securing his dominance through a combination of strength and strategy. What these examples reveal is that diplomacy was far more than a backup plan for when armies failed. It was a key tool in the political arsenal of ancient rulers, a way to achieve their goals without the cost and risk of battle. Whether through formal treaties, secret negotiations, or strategic alliances, diplomacy shaped the ancient world in ways that are often overlooked. It reminds us that history isn't just about the battles won or lost, it's about the decisions made in the quiet moments, the agreements forged in the shadows, and the relationships built across cultures and borders. As we explore these hidden narratives of ancient diplomacy, we see a world where words could be as powerful as weapons, where alliances could be as decisive as armies. These stories challenge us to think differently about the past, and perhaps even about the present. After all, the art of diplomacy isn't confined to history books. It's a timeless practice, one that continues to shape our world today. and in understanding its role in ancient politics, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human relationships and the enduring power of dialogue over destruction. Rising from the fertile plains of the Mississippi River, the Cahokia civilization once stood as a towering testament to the ingenuity and ambition of ancient North America. At its peak around the year 1100 CE, Cahokia's sprawling cityscape, complete with massive earthen mounds, bustling plazas, and a population rivaling that of medieval London, marked it as one of the most advanced societies of its time. Yet by the 14th century, this thriving metropolis lay abandoned, its people vanished, and its story shrouded in mystery. What could have caused the collapse of a civilization so vibrant, so seemingly unstoppable? The answers, much like the mounds themselves, are buried deep within layers of history, waiting to be uncovered. One of the most widely discussed theories points to political instability. Cahokia was a complex society, governed by a hierarchy of leaders who wielded both religious and secular power. But as the population grew, so did the pressures on its rulers. Evidence suggests that internal divisions may have fractured the social fabric, with rival factions vying for control. Some archaeologists point to signs of conflict, such as defensive palisades and evidence of violence, as indicators that Cahokia's leaders struggled to maintain order. Without a unified authority to guide them, the civilization may have descended into chaos, its once cohesive structure crumbling under the weight of infighting. Environmental changes also likely played a role in Cahokia's decline. The civilization's success was built on its ability to harness the fertile lands of the Mississippi River Valley, but this reliance also made it vulnerable. Prolonged droughts or unpredictable weather patterns could have devastated crops, leading to food shortages and economic collapse. Some researchers believe that deforestation, caused by the need for wood to build and maintain the city, may have further strained the environment. Imagine the desperation of a society watching its lifeline, its food and resources dwindle away. Without the ability to adapt quickly, Cahokia's people may have been forced to abandon their homes, scattering in search of more stable lands. External invasions are another possibility, though harder to prove. While Cahokia's location offered natural defenses, it wasn't immune to the ambitions of neighboring tribes. As other groups in the region grew stronger, competition for resources may have escalated into conflict. Evidence of burned structures and hastily built fortifications hints at the possibility of raids or outright invasions. Yet without clear records, these theories remain speculative, adding another layer of intrigue to Cahokia's story. Did rival tribes see an opportunity to strike at a weakened civilization, or did Cahokia's decline come from within? What makes Cahokia's collapse particularly enigmatic is the absence of written records. Unlike the Maya or the Egyptians, the Cahokians left behind no inscriptions or texts to explain their decisions or document their struggles. Their story is told through the silent language of archaeology, through the remnants of their mounds, their tools, and their art. These artifacts offer tantalizing clues, but they also leave much to the imagination. Were Cahokia's leaders visionary or tyrannical? Did their people face rebellions, betrayals, or alliances gone wrong? The answers may lie buried beneath the earth, waiting for future discoveries to bring them to light. This mystery, however, is part of what makes Cahokia so fascinating. Its story reminds us that history isn't always neatly recorded or easily understood. Sometimes, the most compelling narratives are those that linger in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. Cahokia's collapse challenges us to consider how much of the past remains unknowable, how much of it lies hidden beneath layers of soil and time. And in that uncertainty, we find not just mystery, but a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human history. As we reflect on the hidden narratives of Cahokia, we're reminded that some secrets of ancient politics may never be fully unraveled. The decisions of its leaders, the challenges they faced, and the choices they made remain as enigmatic as the civilization itself. Yet, in exploring these questions, we gain not just insight into the past, but a deeper understanding of the forces that shape all great societies, forces that continue to resonate in the world we live in today. The Han Dynasty, often celebrated as a golden age of Chinese civilization, stood for over 4 centuries as a symbol of stability, innovation, and cultural achievement. From the construction of the Silk Road to the development of groundbreaking technologies like papermaking, the Han Dynasty shaped the course of history. Yet, even the most enduring empires are not immune to decline, and the fall of the Han Dynasty is a story of political intrigue, corruption, and the hidden fractures that can bring even the mightiest civilizations to their knees. At the heart of the Han Dynasty's decline was internal corruption, a rot that spread through the empire's political and administrative systems. The dynasty's bureaucracy, once a model of efficiency, became increasingly riddled with greed and mismanagement. Local officials, known as commandery governors, began to prioritize personal enrichment over public service. They imposed heavy taxes on the peasantry, hoarded wealth, and ignored the needs of their provinces. This exploitation sowed widespread discontent, particularly among the rural population, who bore the brunt of the empire's economic inequalities. Over time, these grievances fueled uprisings, the most famous being the Yellow Turban Rebellion in 184 CE. This massive revolt, led by a religious sect, wasn't just a cry for justice. It was a symptom of a system that had lost its moral and political compass. But corruption alone doesn't tell the full story. The Han Dynasty's decline was also shaped by the ambitions and rivalries of its ruling elite. Emperor Wu, one of the dynasty's most influential rulers, had expanded the empire's borders and centralized its power. Yet his reign also sowed the seeds of future instability. To finance his military campaigns, Wu imposed heavy taxes and monopolized key industries, creating economic strain. After his death, the empire struggled to maintain its momentum, and the imperial court became a battleground for rival factions. Eunuchs, imperial relatives, and military leaders vied for control, often resorting to assassination and betrayal to secure their positions. These power struggles fractured the dynasty's unity, leaving it vulnerable to external threats. Among the most devastating of these threats were the invasions by nomadic tribes, particularly the Xiongnu. For centuries, the Han Dynasty had managed to keep these northern raiders at bay through a combination of military strength and diplomacy. However, as internal corruption weakened the empire's defenses, the Xiongnu and other tribes saw an opportunity to strike. The dynasty's inability to mount an effective response exposed its vulnerabilities, and the once secure borders began to crumble. Hidden alliances and betrayals further destabilized the Han Empire. Some regional warlords, disillusioned with the central government, secretly collaborated with invading forces, trading loyalty for promises of power. Others simply declared independence, carving out their own territories from the crumbling empire. These acts of treachery fragmented the Han Dynasty into competing factions, each fighting for control in a chaotic and ever-shifting landscape. The decisions of key figures also played a pivotal role in the dynasty's fall. Emperor Ling, who ruled during the late 2nd century CE, is often criticized for his inability to address the empire's mounting challenges. His reliance on corrupt eunuchs and his failure to quell internal dissent left the dynasty teetering on the brink of collapse. By the time of Emperor Xian, the last Han ruler, the empire was little more than a puppet state, its authority overshadowed by powerful warlords like Cahokia. The fall of the Han Dynasty offers a sobering lesson in the fragility of power. No matter how prosperous or enduring a civilization may seem, it is never immune to the consequences of political mismanagement. The Han Dynasty's inability to address internal corruption, its failure to adapt to external threats, and the betrayals that fractured its unity all contributed to its downfall. Its story reminds us that the greatest threats to an empire often come not from outside its borders, but from within its own walls. As we reflect on the hidden narratives of the Han Dynasty's decline, we're reminded that history is as much about the choices we make as the challenges we face. The Han Dynasty's legacy endures not just in its achievements, but in the lessons it offers about the importance of unity, the dangers of complacency, and the ever-present risk of decline. And in understanding its fall, we gain not just insight into the past, but a timeless warning for the future. Nestled in the lush archipelago of Southeast Asia, the Kingdom of Srivijaya once reigned as a maritime powerhouse, its influence stretching across the seas and shaping the destiny of the region. Emerging around the 7th century CE, Srivijaya wasn't just a kingdom, it was an empire built on the waves, its wealth and power flowing from its mastery of trade routes that connected the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea. But what made Srivijaya so formidable, and how did this once dominant empire vanish into the mists of history? The story of Srivijaya is a tale of ambition, adaptability, and the delicate balance of power in a world where control of the seas meant control of the world. At its height, Srivijaya was a hub of commerce and culture, its ports bustling with ships carrying spices, gold, and exotic goods. The kingdom's strategic location along the Strait of Malacca made it a natural crossroads for trade, attracting merchants from as far away as Arabia, India, and China. But Srivijaya's rulers didn't just rely on geography. They were skilled diplomats and strategists, using a combination of military might and shrewd alliances to secure their dominance. They built a network of vassal states, ensuring loyalty through a mix of economic incentives and the occasional show of force. This dual approach allowed Srivijaya to project power far beyond its borders, becoming a key player in the ancient world's trade networks. Yet, maintaining such a vast maritime empire came with its challenges. Srivijaya's rulers constantly navigated a complex web of alliances and rivalries, balancing the demands of neighboring states with the need to protect their own interests. Conflict was never far away. The kingdom faced repeated threats from rival powers, such as the Javanese Mataram Kingdom and the Chola Empire of southern India. These clashes weren't just about territory, they were about control of the lucrative trade routes that fueled Srivijaya's economy. Battles like the Chola invasion in the 11th century tested the kingdom's resilience, exposing both its strengths and vulnerabilities. Trade, the lifeblood of Srivijaya's empire, also played a pivotal role in its decline. Over time, shifts in global trade patterns began to erode the kingdom's dominance. New routes emerged, bypassing the Strait of Malacca and reducing the importance of Srivijaya's ports. Meanwhile, the rise of rival powers in the region, such as the Khmer Empire and the emerging city-states of Java, created new competition for resources and influence. Srivijaya's rulers, once adept at adapting to change, found themselves struggling to maintain their grip on power. Environmental challenges may have further hastened the kingdom's decline. The region's tropical climate, while fertile, was prone to natural disasters like tsunamis and volcanic eruptions. These events could devastate coastal cities, disrupt trade, and strain the kingdom's resources. Imagine the frustration of a society built on the sea, watching its lifelines crumble under the weight of nature's unpredictability. Without the ability to recover quickly, Srivijaya's once thriving cities began to fade, their grandeur reclaimed by the jungle. What makes Srivijaya's story so compelling is how it reflects the interconnectedness of the ancient world. Its rise and fall weren't just the result of internal decisions. They were shaped by the actions of distant empires, the demands of global trade, and the relentless march of time. Srivijaya's rulers understood this interconnectedness, using it to their advantage for centuries, but in the end, even their skill and resilience couldn't shield them from the changing tides of history. As we uncover the hidden narratives of Srivijaya, we're reminded that no kingdom exists in isolation. The decisions of one ruler, the ambitions of a rival state, or the shifting currents of trade could ripple across the ancient world, shaping the destinies of entire civilizations. Srivijaya's legacy endures not just in its ruins, but in the lessons it offers about the delicate balance of power, the importance of adaptability, and the timeless truth that even the mightiest kingdoms are part of a larger, ever-changing tapestry. And in understanding their story, we gain a deeper appreciation for the forces that continue to connect us all across oceans, across time, and across the stories we tell. In the shadow of ancient thrones, where power was often concentrated in the hands of a few, revolts and uprisings were the thunderclaps that shook kingdoms to their core. These weren't just random acts of defiance, they were eruptions of long-buried grievances, alliances forged in secret, and the collective voice of the oppressed demanding change. From the Jewish revolts against Roman rule to the peasant uprisings in ancient China, these rebellions weren't just moments of chaos. They were pivotal turning points that reshaped the political landscape of entire civilizations. Take the Jewish revolts against Rome, for instance. In the 1st century CE, the Jewish people of Judea found themselves under the heavy hand of Roman occupation. Taxes were oppressive, cultural practices were suppressed, and the temple in Jerusalem, a sacred symbol of Jewish identity, was desecrated. These injustices simmered beneath the surface until they boiled over into open rebellion. The first Jewish revolt, which began in 66 CE, was a desperate bid for freedom, driven by a mix of religious fervor and political defiance. For a time, the rebels held their ground, even retaking Jerusalem. But the Roman Empire, with its vast military might, eventually crushed the uprising, leading to the destruction of the temple in 70 CE. Yet, the revolt left an indelible mark, not just on Jewish history, but on the Roman Empire itself. It exposed the vulnerabilities of imperial rule and revealed the lengths to which people would go to reclaim their autonomy. Half a world away, in ancient China, another kind of rebellion was brewing, one rooted in the struggles of the peasant class. The Han Dynasty, often celebrated for its cultural and technological achievements, was also marked by deep social inequalities. Peasants, burdened by heavy taxes and exploitative landlords, faced lives of relentless hardship. In 184 CE, these simmering frustrations erupted in the Yellow Turban Rebellion, a massive uprising led by a religious sect known as the Taping Tao. The rebels, easily identified by their yellow headscarves, sought to overthrow the corrupt Han government and establish a new order based on equality and justice. Though the rebellion was ultimately suppressed, it dealt a devastating blow to the Han Dynasty, accelerating its decline and paving the way for the chaotic Three Kingdoms period. What's striking about these revolts is how they reveal the hidden forces at play in ancient politics. Beneath the surface of every kingdom were layers of discontent, grievances ignored, alliances overlooked, and voices silenced. When these tensions reached a breaking point, they could spark rebellions that changed the course of history. But revolts weren't just spontaneous outbursts of anger. They were often the result of careful planning and covert coordination. Leaders like Simon Bar Kokhba, who led the Second Jewish Revolt against Rome, or Zhang Ju, the mastermind behind the Yellow Turban Rebellion, understood the power of mobilizing the masses and exploiting the weaknesses of their oppressors. Revolts also highlight the fragility of power in the ancient world. Even the most formidable empires were vulnerable to the collective will of their people. The Roman Empire, despite its military dominance, faced repeated uprisings in its provinces, each one a reminder that conquest didn't guarantee control. Similarly, the Han Dynasty's inability to address the grievances of its peasantry ultimately undermined its authority, proving that even the most prosperous civilizations could crumble from within. These stories of rebellion aren't just about conflict, they are about resilience, the enduring human desire for freedom, and the belief that change is possible. They remind us that history is shaped not just by kings and emperors, but by the countless individuals who dared to rise up and challenge the status quo. And as we explore these hidden narratives, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces that have shaped our world, forces that continue to echo in the struggles for justice and equality today. Revolts were more than just disruptions, they were powerful expressions of agency, moments when the marginalized found their voice and the powerful were forced to listen. In the grand tapestry of ancient politics, they stand as vivid reminders that even the mightiest empires are not invincible, and that the seeds of change are often sown in the soil of discontent. High in the Andean Altiplano, where the air is thin and the landscape stark, the ruins of Tiwanaku stand as silent witnesses to a once thriving civilization. Known for its monumental architecture, intricate stonework, and advanced understanding of agriculture, the Tiwanaku civilization was a powerhouse of ancient South America. Yet around 1000 CE, this vibrant society vanished, leaving behind a mystery that continues to puzzle historians and archaeologists. What could have caused the collapse of a civilization so innovative, so resilient? The answers, much like the stones of Tiwanaku, remain shrouded in layers of time and speculation. One of the most compelling theories points to political instability. Tiwanaku was not a centralized empire, but a network of interconnected communities, each with its own leaders and hierarchies. While this decentralized structure may have fostered cooperation during times of prosperity, it could have become a liability when faced with crisis. Without a unified authority to coordinate responses to challenges, whether environmental, social, or economic, the civilization may have fragmented, its cohesion crumbling under pressure. Archaeological evidence, such as the deliberate destruction of monuments and buildings, hints at internal conflict or the breakdown of social order. Were rival factions vying for control, or did the people simply lose faith in their rulers? The absence of written records leaves these questions unresolved, adding to the intrigue. Environmental changes also likely played a significant role. Tiwanaku's survival depended on its ability to harness the scarce water resources of the high-altitude plains, using sophisticated irrigation systems to sustain agriculture. But what if those systems failed? Some researchers point to evidence of prolonged droughts or shifting weather patterns, which could have disrupted food production and strained the civilization's resources. Imagine the desperation of a society built on the edge of survival, watching their lifelines dry up. Without the ability to adapt quickly, Tiwanaku's people may have faced famine, forcing them to abandon their homes in search of more stable environments. External invasions are another possibility, though harder to prove. While Tiwanaku's remote location might have shielded it from immediate threats, the rise of neighboring cultures could have posed a risk. As new societies emerged in the region, competition for resources and territory may have escalated into conflict. Evidence of defensive structures or signs of violence at some sites could hint at such struggles, but without clear records, these theories remain speculative. Did rival tribes see an opportunity to strike at a weakened civilization, or did Tiwanaku's decline come from within? What makes Tiwanaku's collapse particularly enigmatic is the absence of written records. Unlike other ancient civilizations, which left behind inscriptions, scrolls, or tablets, Tiwanaku's people communicated through architecture and art. Their monumental structures, such as the Akapana Pyramid and the Gate of the Sun, stand as silent witnesses to their ingenuity, but they offer few clues about the political or social forces that shaped their society. Were their leaders visionary or tyrannical? Did their people face rebellions, betrayals, or alliances gone wrong? These hidden narratives remain locked in the stones, waiting for future discoveries to unlock their secrets. This mystery, however, is part of what makes Tiwanaku so fascinating. Its story reminds us that history isn't always neatly recorded or easily understood. Sometimes, the most compelling narratives are those that linger in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. Tiwanaku's collapse challenges us to consider how much of the past remains unknowable, how much of it lies buried beneath the earth or lost to time. And in that uncertainty, we find not just mystery, but a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human history. As we explore these hidden narratives, we're reminded that some secrets of ancient politics may never be fully unraveled. The decisions of its leaders, the challenges they faced, and the choices they made remain as enigmatic as the civilization itself. Yet, in exploring these questions, we gain not just insight into the past, but a deeper understanding of the forces that shape all great societies, forces that continue to resonate in the world we live in today. And so, we've journeyed through the shadows of ancient kingdoms, unraveling the hidden narratives and political intrigues that shaped their rise and fall. From the glittering courts of Cleopatra to the silent ruins of Tiwanaku, we've seen how ambition, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of power define the destinies of civilizations. These stories remind us that history is not just a record of kings and battles. It's a tapestry woven with the threads of human choices, alliances, and the quiet, often unseen forces that drive change. What becomes clear is that no kingdom, no matter how mighty, was immune to the pressures of its time. The Khmer Empire's ingenious water systems couldn't save it from environmental collapse. The Roman Republic's careful balance of power couldn't withstand the weight of ambition and corruption, and the Olmecs, once a vibrant cultural force, faded into obscurity under the strain of internal strife and environmental shifts. These civilizations, for all their grandeur, were fragile, their legacies shaped by the choices of those who ruled and those who resisted. But what do these ancient stories mean for us today? They challenge us to reflect on the nature of power and the systems we build to sustain it. They remind us that even the most stable societies are vulnerable to division, greed, and the unexpected forces of change. And they invite us to consider how the lessons of the past can guide us in navigating the complexities of our own world. As we close this exploration, let's leave you with a thought from the ancient historian Thucydides. The secret to happiness is freedom, and the secret to freedom is courage. In the rise and fall of these lost kingdoms, we see the courage and the cost of striving for greatness. What lessons will we take from their stories? How will we use the wisdom of the past to shape the future? If you've enjoyed this deep dive into history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to subscribe for more. Together, let's continue uncovering the hidden narratives that connect us to the past and inspire us to think differently about the present. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Which ancient kingdom's story resonated most with you and why? Let's keep the conversation alive. Until next time, stay curious and remember, history is never just about the past. It's about understanding the forces that shape us